All right, thanks. Thanks to the organizers for having me here. I'm a generalist, I think, among a few other generalists that spoke today, so very intimidated by the amazing knowledge of our subspecialty colleagues and the way they spoke. So talk's a little bit lighter. It's just about apps. You're going to get a handout. It has a whole bunch of list of apps, and that's about it. So, and I know I'm like the barrier between you and your weekend and my weekend, so I'll try to keep it light and quick. Apparently, cell phones are a big commodity in jail, and so this is where this was taken inside of body cavity. So I do have disclosures, sort of. Like, I'm a techno junkie. I love technology. I love gadgets and things. The drawers in our house can attest to that. I'm a clinical advisor to a bunch of startups. I'm an angel investor in a few startups. Don't tell my wife. And I'm a founder of a very early stage startup. I'm not going to be talking about any of those. I am a reviewer for some apps that I am going to talk about, but it's like I was paid a stipend by OTN to review some apps that they chose, so not directly from the apps. So these are two of my kids. I always take pictures of them on the iPad. I don't know why. I'm like fascinated that they're on the iPad, but meanwhile, like, we give it to them, and it's just like, I don't know, so many pictures of them like this. They're digital natives, and most of our patients and most of our families are digital natives. They grow up in a world with technology. You notice that kid who comes to your office, he has ADHD, and they're like, oh, what's that? What's that? And they're jamming your computer screen. They're trying to, it's not a touch screen, it's just a monitor. And versus we're all digital immigrants. You know, many of us are still two-finger typing. And so we have to kind of adapt to a world of technology and learn these new things, whereas most of our patients and young families, they don't know a world without it. It's just kind of second nature to them. So the first step, I think, is practice what you preach. So how many people here have used an app in clinical practice for themselves? Okay, that's pretty good. Maybe 50% of people or more. So I think we should become familiar with apps. If you're going to be recommending these to patients or at least guiding them in the direction, then we should be familiar. So I'm just going to fly through some slides here. General reference apps are pretty useful. UpToDate, Medscape, Dynamed. UpToDate is expensive. There is a CMA discount. What's cool about it is that it keeps track of your CME. So whenever you're using it and you're logged in, it keeps track of credit. So by the end of the year, you could easily accumulate 50 hours of credits just by reading it for patient care. And a lot of the critique of UpToDate before was like the evidence was not that good. But now if you look at it, for example, like the section on trisomy 21 and malignancy, the author is actually one of the leading experts from Sick Kids on trisomy 21 and malignancy. So it's really well done and up to date. Who's here has heard of Figure 1? It's Instagram for doctors. It's really cool because you can take pictures of a patient, you can get them to sign a consent form on the app, you can email it to them, and then you can upload it to share it, or keep it in Instagram, or in Figure 1 just for your own records to share clinical images. There's also formularies, so Hippocrates, Lexicomp, and then there's the eCPS, that blue book. Lots of people here probably still have that blue book or seen the blue book. Now it's in an app format. There's acute care resources. So PediStat is an acute care resource. It's $4.99 in the App Store. PediRef is similar, and we're working on something at Sick Kids. Again, quick reference apps, blood pressure percentiles, growth charts, eye charts, all these things are available in app format. So you kind of have to explore these for yourselves. Many patients have growth charts on their phones and then track their kids' growth on it. But if you're in a hospital setting, you might not have the growth charts readily available, so you can quickly just plot it if you're wondering about a kid. Now, there's lots of bilirubin apps out there. I particularly find this one useful, BiliCalc or bilitool.org. This app's pretty good because it gives you decision support. So you just put in the kid's age and the bilirubin level, and then it tells you what to do in terms of when to repeat the level and if they need phototherapy or not. It's got quick links to the references to the charts that we're all familiar with. It's in color, so it's kind of like nicer than the black and white CPS statements. And it's got some other things. Okay, red reflex deferred. I don't know if I've ever seen a red reflex like in the hospital in a patient. It's like only when I'm teaching trainees, I'm like, I got to find that ophthalmoscope, because there's no ophthalmoscope on the labor and delivery wards anywhere. So has this happened to anyone? You're like, you just see the chart, red reflex deferred, or that's what I write. So we're going to attempt to play a video here, and let's see if this works.
Welcome back. New tonight, we've got an app that can actually help you monitor your child's health.
Digital reporter Alexandra Bahu here to tell us how simple it can be and help save lives. Alex.
Researchers at Baylor University have created an app that can detect an abnormality in a child's eyes. The free iPhone app called White Eye Detector helps discover the appearance of white eye or leukocoria in photographs. Now, a white pupil could be a normal photographic effect, but could also be an indication of serious eye diseases like retinoblastoma. The app searches your device for pictures that contain white eye and alerts you. You can select individual pictures or have it scan your whole iPhone. If there is a possibility of white eye, a red box will appear around the eye in the photograph. The application can also scan in real time too, using the camera on your phone. Creators say parents are usually the first to discover white eye in their children through pictures they've taken. The app is not to diagnose children, simply to help parents notice if there might be something to get checked out by a physician.
So again, it's a cool app, but you could just download it on your phone. You can hold it up to a kid's eyes and just screen for white eye. If it's there, then you can go searching for that ophthalmoscope to confirm if what you see. And then for parents, if they're worried, if there's a family history of something, they can always scan all their photos for it. And again, it's just a screening tool. Okay, so this is a bunch of apps that you could use as a clinician that may help you. Now, has this ever happened? A patient comes and is asked, how many people have been asked by patients if there's an app that they could use for a certain condition? A few people. And how many people have ever recommended an app to a patient? Like a handful of people. Okay. So this is the one big takeaway from this talk is this website. It's called practicalapps.ca. It's going to be on a bunch of slides. This is, if there's one thing that you take away from me today, this is it. It's a website. It's supported by OTN. So Ed Brown is the CEO of OTN, and this is his pet project. And essentially he said, look, family docs, primary care practitioners, they're struggling. We want to find a place where we can put trusted health app reviews online that a family doctor could go to and kind of look at common conditions like migraine and asthma. And then if a patient had concerns or questions about using an app, they could go to this resource. So they're really looking at apps that are available in Canada, relate to Canadian guidelines. They're Canadian-made or from a trusted clinical group or a patient group. They're evidence-based, and they're most popular in the app stores. So when you look at the apps that they've reviewed, there's about 16 to 18 app reviews right now. Unfortunately, the funding was cut for the site, so it still exists, but they're just not posting any new reviews until the provincial government probably changes. So right now, irritable bowel syndrome is the most popular app review that's out there, and then atrial fibrillation's next. The asthma reviews on child and adolescent anxiety, as well as the pediatric asthma reviews, are up there. They're listed here in order. So quickly, behavior change with apps is a section. The Eat Tracker is by the Canadian Dietitian Society, and it's just a way for patients to track their meals. So if you have a kid with failure to thrive or an adult who's worried about nutrition, they can use this to eat. It has a lot of common meal plans in it so that they can track to what they've eaten, so you can kind of get an idea of their diet and calorie counts. My Food Guide is Canada's Food Guide, and then Can Immunize. This is an amazing app. It's from CHIO in Ottawa. And imagine your 1 month visit. Okay, the parents are going to come for 2 months for their shots, and they're like, hey, what shots are we going to get? You can say, okay, go to this website. You can download the app if you want. You click on 2 months, and then it'll go through the vaccinations that you're going to get. It clicks to reliable health information from the Public Health Agency of Canada, and you can track your kids' immunizations in it, and you can create a yellow sheet afterwards, and you can even print them out. They're working on an immunization database for Ontario, and it will link to this app eventually. So the reviews generally look like this. There's the title, the reviewer, a little description about it. There's some references to common guidelines, Canadian especially, and some patient experiences of using the apps. The first app review I did was on child and adolescent anxiety. So the Mayo Clinic, say you have a kid that's really afraid of going in elevators. Well, they have like an exposure hierarchy for CBT that you could use in the Mayo Clinic app. It's developed by a psychologist. There's randomized trials using the app with a psychologist or without. And so it's a really well-developed, well-done app. Mindshift is by Anxiety BC, and it's giving coping tools for kids to deal with anxiety. And then here's a little video about the next app, Thinkful, which is built by another anxiety group out in BC.
Is stress affecting the quality of your life? You are not alone. Most people find it hard to manage stress in their lives. What if there was an app that helped you manage your stress and encouraged you with healthy coping ideas? Introducing Thinkful, an app designed to help motivate you when you feel overwhelmed. Thinkful nudges you to build a healthy life balance with tips and personalized suggestions.
So it generally checks in with you every day and says, hey, how you doing? And you can rate your mood, and then it can give you different suggestions for how to manage your anxiety or stress, and you can track your stress levels over time. Similarly, there's a bunch of apps that do this for adults. Pacifica is specifically one that's the highest ranked in the App Store when you look at stress, anxiety, depression. They actually have a scientific advisory board and multiple clinical psychologists on their development team. So it's fairly evidence-based and is really well done. And now this app is Headspace. You may have heard of this as well. It's developed by a Buddhist monk who wanted to make meditation simple and accessible to try to impact as many people as possible. There's a YouTube channel associated with the app, and some of these videos have like 44 million views. They're really well done.
Have you ever wondered why we teach our kids about looking after the body, but we don't really teach them how to look after the mind? Teaching them about meditation at an early age would set them up for life. But we all know that sitting quietly isn't that easy. It's not easy for us as grown-ups, so think how hard it is for kids. They'd much rather be out and about, having fun, getting dirty, than sitting still with their eyes closed for 10 minutes. So here at Headspace, we've created some activities and meditations, especially for them, with themes like calm, kindness, and even bedtime. We created these sessions for children and parents to enjoy together. Each activity is different depending on how old your child is. There are exercises designed for toddlers, preteens, and every age in between. This really is the best of both worlds. Quality time with your child while teaching them a valuable skill for life. And hey, who knows? Maybe you'll even get a little extra headspace for yourself.
So that's a pretty cool app. And now asthma, there's a bunch of apps. Interestingly, this happens a lot when I was doing these reviews and across it. So the last app there is developed by the American Academy of Pediatrics, and it's actually terribly done. And so it doesn't get good reviews, and it's a really bad app. But so we put it out there to kind of say, like, a lot of these societies are doing it, but they're not doing it well. Versus some things like this is an app, but it's called WISD Pet. So you have a new patient that has asthma, you're trying to get them to take puffers, and they've kind of developed this little video to introduce the app that it's a character, the character has asthma, and it needs to take its puffers, so it goes through the different techniques of how to take it, and you can play along with it, and then after you take your puffer, you're able to breathe fire, just like in real life. So just kind of cool apps and ways to kind of engage kids and patients. Now, people may have heard about the Internet of Things, and this is where really the future is going, and talking about connected medical devices. So one example here is this Smart Touch.
The Smart Touch is an intelligent
inhaler.
tracking device that
So there's lots of research studies that have been going on since 2006 where they're looking at, let's compare regular inhaled corticosteroids versus intermittent, and all these different asthma tests. And one of the ways they ensured adherence in all the different asthma studies is using an inhaler like this, that it starts blinking when you need to take it, and then after you take it, it confirms that you've taken the dose. So that's great for adherence. And now you can get these in Walgreens and CVS in the States, these electronic inhalers that help to actually decrease the number of hospital admissions and that decrease the oral steroid use in kids. And there's tons of research studies published by these groups, and they've been using it in the background in their research studies, and now it's commercially available because insurance providers will reimburse people for using this because it increases adherence to asthma medication, so then it results in parents missing less days of work. There's another company doing it, so they have a connected spirometer, and they have attachments for all these different kinds of inhalers. And then there's even a connected thermometer that you can buy. Again, it's geared to patients. It's $20. You can buy it in the Apple Store. It's wireless. It has a long battery life. It's very fast. While you're measuring the kid's temperature, bubbles pop up on your screen, so then they can pop the bubbles to keep them distracted. And then this is an otoscope. It's $350 US, but the otoscope attaches to an iPhone. So then you can take pictures of the ear and then show parents, no, this is what it is. This is not an otitis media. And you can swipe it into your chart. I have one of these. I got one. It's great. I show all the residents it when I'm on service. Clinical case, 17-year-old boy who was playing hockey 3 days ago, and he had palpitations. It's 3 days later. He told his mom today, and she's like, what? Go to the Emerge. So he's here in the Emerge. He's totally fine. He's like, my mom told me to come. So what do you do? So there's an app for that. So he does not have atrial fibrillation. He could, but he probably doesn't. But there's an app for that. And one of the apps, it's freely available. It's called Cardio. So you can download it, and then you take your finger, you put it over your phone, I call this my brain all the time. You put it over there, and it gives you a heart rate. So you tell the kid, okay, your ECG is normal, you look fine. Next time you feel this, check your heart rate. And they've published tons of studies on this. They can detect AFib, but in order to put that out there, it's actually a FDA-approved device. So then you kind of have to go through some research before you can just put it out there. So they can detect AFib with any smartphone device. And all of us have watches and other things that can also help us to detect heart rates, but that can sometimes be cost prohibitive. And then there's even this device that's a single lead ECG that they've done research studies where they've taken kids that come in with palpitations to the Emerge, and they send them home with one of these devices versus an event recorder. And this outperformed the event recorder, that whenever they had symptoms, they would just put their 2 fingers on there and they'd capture a single lead ECG. Again, it's about $100 to buy this device, but the idea is if you're seeing a kid that has palpitations, but generally they're well, or anyone, then you could probably maybe ask them to try to get their heart rate at least the next time that they're feeling symptomatic. And now for the future.
Can video games be good for your brain? A team of scientists has been developing video games that are supposed to improve your cognitive function to the point that they could potentially support treatment for diseases like ADHD, depression, or Alzheimer's. In fact, they think these games could be prescribed in the very near future and create an entirely new category of digital medicine. Is this the next level of video games? This is Neuroscape. It's a lab at the University of California, San Francisco, and it's where I spent the better part of a day playing games that could someday be prescription video games. Led by neuroscientist Adam Ghazali, the team at Neuroscape is entirely focused on developing and testing games that are designed in some way to impact brain function.
Neuroscape's main focus is on all things related to attention. Either selective attention, our ability to sustain it, or to switch our attention between multiple tasks. And these abilities decline as we get older. Many different clinical populations like ADHD and depression have challenges with them, and we don't really have any strong drugs that actually work well without side effects. And so the idea was if we can build a new type of treatment that doesn't rely on molecules, but rather creates an experience, a very powerful, targeted, personal experience that challenges your brain and optimizes how it functions.
Ghazali has also co-founded...
they do have FDA approval for one of their games for ADHD. They've started a company called Akili, so it could be time for many of our patients to start playing their medicine. They have research state papers that are published, and so it's kind of cool that this could be coming down as a digital therapeutic that you're prescribing a video game to your patients with certain conditions. So overall, I hope that you got an idea that there's some mobile apps that you can use in your clinical practice that you can maybe try to test out. There's some apps that are out there that you can recommend to patients and families that are generally low risk and freely available, and that there's lots of these digital new technologies that are coming, and some already exist, especially south of the border, that you should start exploring and that patients might start asking about. Thanks for your time.